500,000 Southern Californians now live near one of the most contaminated sites in California.
60 years and they haven't started cleanup yet.
It's a toxic mess in the hills between the San Fernando and Simi valleys, one that may be putting the health of thousands at risk.
You are choosing to move your family here when there's poison.
They live near the Santa Susana Field Lab.
It's a former nuclear and rocket testing facility, and tonight the I-Team reveals why this research site is still contaminated with dangerous chemicals and radiation.
Joel Grover joins us now with even more from his year-long investigation. Joel.
In Woodland Hills, Canoga Park, Simi Valley, and other neighborhoods, people are afraid. They think the chemicals and radiation from the Santa Susana Field Lab have made them and their families sick. Now the NBC4 I-Team has uncovered evidence that big business interests working behind the scenes with government bureaucrats have managed to stonewall a full cleanup of the site. Hundreds of new homes are under construction northwest of L.A., just down the hill from the Santa Susana Field Lab, a former secret research site contaminated with a stew of chemicals and radiation.
You're crazy to raise a family there.
These people have all lived in the suburbs near Santa Susana.
So this is me when I was 4 years old.
Like Jessica Gazelle.
I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer.
And believe the contamination from the site made them sick.
I think they need to clean it up.
This woman almost got it cleaned up. You're wiping away tears talking about Santa Susana. She's Linda Adams, the former head of California's Environmental Protection Agency, who's served both Democratic and Republican governors.
They depended on me to get it done.
Years ago, Adams heard stories
every single house on my street had cancer
of people like these who lived near the former test site, including children who'd lost their eyes to a cancer often linked to radiation exposure. Did you feel there needed to be a full cleanup of the contamination?
Absolutely.
The I-Team has uncovered how radiation was secretly released into the air over L.A. and Ventura counties in 1959 after a partial nuclear meltdown at Santa Susana's biggest reactor. Other releases followed in the 1960s. And this EPA study shows parts of the site are still contaminated with radiation. And thousands of rocket tests done at the lab left cancer-causing chemicals in the soil and water all over the site. Barbara Lee runs the Department of Toxic Substances Control, or DTSC, which is in charge of getting toxic sites cleaned up. Is this site seriously contaminated?
The site has a lot of contamination.
Contamination that, according to this federally funded study, has moved into neighboring communities and might have been inhaled by residents.
Those chemicals don't stay on the mountain. The population is below the site.
This toxic site was once run by Rocketdyne, but is now owned by Boeing, one of the state's largest employers and a big contributor to California politicians, including Governor Brown. Even though Boeing didn't own it when most of the nuclear and rocket testing took place, as the current owner, they'd have to pay the millions of dollars it would take to fully clean it up, with some help from NASA and the Department of Energy, which also used parts of the site. Did you sense Boeing was spending a lot of money to kill a full cleanup?
Absolutely. They had formed a large army of lobbyists to do everything they could to stop cleanup to that level.
It's been like a game of musical chairs. A former environmental aide to Governor Brown, a former head of the state EPA, and the former chief lawyer of the DTSC have all switched sides and worked on behalf of Boeing to kill a full cleanup of Santa Susana.
It's a very smart and very evil strategy.
Lisa Tucker of the advocacy group Consumer Watchdog.
Boeing has very much hired people who were once regulating them.
The Boeing company has employed cadres of people.
In 2007, State Senator Sheila Kuehl went after Boeing.
There are cancer clusters of various kinds of exotic cancers all around this site.
Senator Kuehl managed to get a bill passed ordering the DTSC to force Boeing to fully clean up Santa Susana, restoring it to the way it was before the nuclear rocket testing. But Boeing went to court and got the law thrown out, saying the site was being unfairly singled out by being held to such a high cleanup standard.
It was an uphill battle.
So EPA Secretary Adams stepped in 2009 and got NASA and the Department of Energy to sign agreements guaranteeing they would fully clean up their parts of Santa Susana. But Boeing wouldn't sign a similar agreement.
We were outnumbered.
According to internal emails we obtained, Boeing lobbyists were privately meeting with DTSC staffers to influence the cleanup requirements.
There are those that think your agency is too cozy with Boeing.
I haven't seen it, and I've looked for it.
Today, 5 years later, Boeing is proposing to turn Santa Susana into parkland for recreational purposes. The company declined to speak on camera with NBC4, but in an email told us the cleanup will be based on established science and follow the regulatory process with full transparency.
They want to clean up almost none of it.
Dan Hirsch is a University of California nuclear policy instructor who's been fighting for decades to get Santa Susana cleaned up. He's examined Boeing's latest cleanup proposal.
Boeing is proposing that it only have to clean up something on the order of a few % of the contamination.
Is there any chance there will not be a full cleanup?
Well, we haven't determined what the cleanup levels will be.
Boeing even hired a PR firm which devised this 2012 strategy obtained by the I-Team. It says Boeing should target media, including KNBC, and convince them the site poses no significant risk to human health today, even though this federally funded study in 2007 found much higher cancer rates in the suburbs close to Santa Susana.
Are you concerned contamination from that site is still spilling into neighborhood communities?
I don't believe that there is a current exposure to communities.
I don't know how anyone could be saying that. Evidence I've seen shows there is a threat.
We've done extensive soil sampling.
We asked her to show us those recent soil tests, and instead, DTSC pointed us to documents like this one from a Boeing contractor that looked at old studies and determined that off-site contamination was not significant.
It's time to clean it up, and it's time to do something right about it.
These people who live near Santa Susana want the truth, and they say they don't want others to get sick and suffer like they have.
I just want to see my kids grow up. That's all I want in life.
Again, we asked Boeing to answer our questions on camera about the stalled cleanup of this site, and they declined. Instead, they sent us a statement saying, "We remain resolute in our commitment to perform a comprehensive and fully protective cleanup, and they will restrict Boeing's property so it will never be used for residential, commercial, industrial, or agricultural purposes." We're still hoping Boeing will sit down and speak with us. You can read Boeing's full statement on our special LA's Nuclear Secret website. Visit NBCLA.com and click on the link.
Joe, I know after last night's report you got lots of emails from our viewers. What are some of the things they're asking?
We are hearing from a lot of people who live around this site. We're hearing from former workers who say they know more of what went on up there. So we will be doing a lot more stories. There's a lot more to come.
Fantastic work, Joel. Well, you can learn a lot more about this I-Team series on our special LA's Nuclear Secret webpage.
There you're going to find additional information about the field lab, including timelines of its activities and even more interviews with the whistleblowers and community members who live near that site. You can also access many documents that we've reviewed in this special section by going to NBCLA.com.